the whole situation with Iran and the United States and the conversation of the MOU and the MOA. And at this point, child, what is going on? I don't know if y'all been looking at, I don't know what that was about, but listen, we back. So what I wanted to talk about tonight was the conversation of what those MOUs, which we were hoping was going to turn into what an MOA. We were trying to see if the Memorandum of Understanding, which they said they just established, was going to actually bring us to an actual agreement. But what happens? Oh, what happens? One of the main things that they agreed upon was what? There was going to be no strikes. What did they agree on? That we were going to make sure people were going to have access to the Strait of Hormuz, right? So what ends up happening? There are strikes. What's happening? There's things happening near the Strait of Hormuz. What is happening? We got somebody that's going on Twitter or whatever they call it. I'm dating myself as a millennial. The X. They're going on there pretty much stating that at this point they're not going to worry about what's going on with the war. I'm like, excuse me? What do you mean? It's like, you know what? Not too pressed to deal with it, you know, whatever. That's not a whatever situation. That's very problematic. We're at war. And we were in the process of negotiations, and you telling me you're kind of indifferent to it? Oh, you're like, oh yeah, I'm not even gonna worry about that. I'm not gonna follow through with that. You know, it's done. It's over. I'm sorry. What? That's not how business situations go. That's not how negotiation goes. That's so I'm very interested to see like what is gonna happen. I was trying to find ways I can pull up my screenshots right here on live with the mobile version because I want y'all to see what was being reported on Reuters, right? That's a little bit more of a credible source. And I was just like, I mean, even as recent as like 45 minutes ago, right? It says Trump wants to leave the Iran war behind. But quote unquote, they're saying that won't happen soon. So, like, that's what I said, right? Like, what is happening? Like, how is that even the way all this is being handled? Is like it's frustrating as heck, right? Because we're literally in war, right? We're literally supposed to be in negotiations, and like the fact that on Reuters right now, like less than an hour ago or something, like, oh, it's like, yeah, basically whatever. No, this is not a whatever situation. And someone who comes from having a business background, it's like, you know better than that. You know better than that. Like, I'm trying to get into like overly political elements of other, but it's like it just that piece alone, like, you know better than that. Like, you literally know better than that. And it's just so frustrating because there is a cost to the individual when things like this are happening. When things like this are happening, us, the constituents, people of each economy, even other economies, like, we absorb that harm. We absorb the harm of those negotiations going bad. There were strikes that are happening, which means we're having economic damage, we're having property damage, we have potentially loss of life when things like that happen. And I know that there is some level of loss of life because they use specific language like, oh, there weren't any civilian casualties. Okay, but what about those people who were willing to sacrifice themselves for their nation? We still count that too. Like, we want to know what's going on with that as well. We would want to know. The two particular areas and metrics for which they told us that were going to be points of discussion with the MOU, like those two positions that they just came to, already having issues. So when we previously talked about it here on the channel, like, hey, what's the likelihood of this transitioning into an actual agreement, right? We can't say definitively, which is why I don't try to speak in a manner which says I'm being definitive, like, hey, this will happen or that will happen. But certainly it doesn't suggest that in the near future that's going to be resolved, especially if one of the terms is like, hey, let's not engage in strikes, let's not do things near the Strait of Hamas, and then there are things happening on both accounts, right? So that's just in general not good. And then there's just other things that are just happening, which are like, what is happening? So today, I was like, let me pull out my little hat, my little Disney hat, right? Because, like, literally some of this stuff just can't be real. And, like, when I say I'm flabbergasted, and when I say that I am so severely disappointed by what's happening with regards to that, like, negotiation, those discussions, when I feel the way that it's all being handled, I'm very disappointed. Right? We had so many opportunities to creatively go in there and make sure that the harm to the individuals wouldn't be what it potentially could become, right? People don't understand when they don't address those issues, we absorb it. So what? Gas prices are going to go up and they're going to keep going up, right? Food costs is going to go up. That harm to the individual, right? War, all those impacts, we're the ones who absorb that. It could have just been handled so much better. It could have literally just been handled so much better. And even right now, like, I don't like that blase post, right? Oh yeah, well, whatever. No, it's not a whatever. Not at all. So I was gonna do like a whole breakdown of what they had available on the MOU. But it just seems like the developments with this whole situation is like you literally have to be like wanting to be groundbreaking with news to actually be able to report on anything that's factual and actual in current events, because the current events are happening too frequently. Like literally, like I said, I'm about to go pull it back up. Like what is that about? He said if we make a deal with Iran, I'm not sure that was sick. What do you mean? Mostly because if you make a deal, it's supposed to be somewhat enforceable. Like we always have the questions about who's going to like enforce it, right? So you want to feel like people operate in good faith. But what do you mean? Like, oh, if we were to do it now, I just feel like it wouldn't stick, so I'm just going to disregard. Excuse me? Excuse me? That's not how that works. It's not how that should work. So I just felt like I was gonna pop on here, talk to my people, see what y'all thinking, how y'all feeling this evening. But yeah, right off of Reuters, y'all know when I find stuff. But yeah, right off of Reuters, y'all know when I find stuff, I bring it right to y'all. I want to chit chat with y'all immediately. Sometimes we'll go through Legally Everywhere framework. Sometimes, I'll have my sketchbooks and things ready, right? Which are like my little pages and things where I give you like a visual map, so to speak, because we have different, learning styles, communication styles. And I try to like reach everyone where I feel like, in every way that I possibly can, within reason. But yeah, like I just wanted to talk to y'all, see what you were thinking. That's why I love getting on live, just to kind of talk to y'all real time. What are your thoughts about this? Because to me, I'm like literally flabbergasted. Rarely I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm perplexed. Like I just like when you walk into situations like negotiations and mediations, in theory, like you should have some type of strategy or metrics to your movements, right? Like the way that this has all been put together, it feels like there wasn't much strategy at the beginning. So you would assume if you didn't put strategy at the beginning that you would fortify and be more meticulous in making sure that there is a lot of strategy during the middle and the end. But at present moment, let's just call it the middle, we don't see movements that suggest there is like strategy being employed, and that doesn't make you feel very comfortable, right? Because the things that are happening right now, this isn't just affecting those two economies, or like say three, right? Because technically it's like a three-party situation. It's affecting multiple economies. It's affecting multiple economies. And that's the part that bothers me. I feel like there needs to be more like regard for that. I don't think people understand like how this is gonna be affecting the dollar, how this is going to be affecting, your imports, exports. I don't think people are really kind of putting, like when I told you all, like in the previous live, they are quite literally cutting gas, right? So they're allowing something that they didn't previously permit. I was reading like the EPA report, and they were saying they're allowing higher levels of alcohol content in the gasoline. Why? Because they don't have as much access to gasoline right now. So you're buying gasoline thinking that, oh, normally my gas gets me to this place. I get to, it costs me X amount of money. Well, guess what? It's actually not going to get you as far, and it's going to probably actually cost you more. That's a harm that you absorb as a constituent. So yeah, this is an everybody problem. This is not, oh, let them handle it. This is an everybody problem. When you're wondering why your food costs whatever it's going to cost, everybody problem. It's an everybody problem. When you can't get certain things in general because the exports, the things that are supposed to be coming in, right? They sitting out there because we're in a tumultuous situation where, things that would have flown through there, let's say transition, move through the Strait of Hormuz, not get where it needs to go. Especially if that's like produce, like food, right? So then you're going to get it's going to be old. You a small business owner. Let's say for the point of conversation, you're a small business owner. You spent your money to have those products coming in. Let's say it's produce, maybe it's something else, right? You already sent the money. Your stuff is sitting over there, you waiting. Your consumers are also waiting, and they feel some type of way because they were looking for you to have the thing that you, at this moment, don't have access to. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, thank you. Like, so you don't have access to those things, right? When it finally gets, if it's produce, you're going to be in a bad position. If it's not, you still kind of somewhat in a weird disposition because your consumers are looking like, man, normally you're someone who supplies and you didn't do what, what we were looking for you to do. So from your business perspective, you've been put in a really bad spot. Because now you almost feel inclined to be like, oh, well, should I offer them a discount? Should I offer them some? Even though you might be a business owner, a small business owner, you to an extent are still on the consumer side. You have to absorb that harm because of the things that are happening with the war, right? With the conflict. So it is everybody's problem. It's not just for the people who live in those other places. Now let me respond to some of these comments. Yeah. You get where I'm going with this, right? Like, it's everybody's problem. I think a lot of times we kind of think of it siloed, like, oh, that's for the government, that's the politicians. No, this is a everyday person problem. Like, us as the consumers, we are taking these hits. They are literally cutting the gas. Like, they are quite literally, the gasoline you're getting is not going to go as far and it's going to cost you more. As if those prices are not already uncomfortable. So, and that doesn't even bring us to the whole point of when you think of the conversation of like actual war and conflict, right? That always implies loss of life. And I think a lot of times people don't think about that part, but it's something we have to kind of think about when people are walking into the conversation of negotiation talks, right? We're under this notion that there'll be some time of like peace, and it gives us some wiggle room, some opportunity to come up with creative options and opportunity solutions. That's not actually what happened. That is not actually what happened. Someone asked a question about my lipstick combo. It's just called Bare Minerals. Bare Minerals, like the makeup company. I don't remember the number or the name of it, but I'll just go with like a fuchsia color. But thank you for your comments. And we're talking about the negotiation talks, back to that piece. Yes. Um, you know what I'm saying? Like, from my perspective, it's just so many areas where there's harm being absorbed to us as the people. And specifically from like a moving to like a US centered or centric perspective, where in a time frame where we have an opportunity to make sure the people we want to be elected sit in their seats. Just make sure you get civically engaged and you vote in alignment with your beliefs. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I'll leave that to you guys. If you guys are smart and you'll know who to vote for based off your own belief system and what you feel like is right for the community. But it's times like this, a lot of times your elected people are selecting those appointed people. So we do want to have conversations about what is going on, because we need to hold them accountable for certain kind of things. The way that this certain talk is happening right now, that's not appropriate. Oh yeah, if we came to a deal, I don't think it would work. And this is what you put out there. Like, it's just, I am so optimistic and hopeful that things will turn around. But as I told you guys, we kind of follow the conversation and we would just kind of, see what happens. I saw that and I originally was like, oh no, it's time to tuck it in for the night. But no, I said, let me get on, talk to my people, see what you guys are thinking. You said you like buying beans and they're getting expensive. I bet. And it is hard to negotiate because not all places do like the barter process and what have you, but like in situations where you can, it is harder because I'm kind of like accustomed to both processes when it comes to like trying to get the things that I purchase for my consumption. And yeah, it is hard because people are put in tight positions. People are put in really hard positions. It costs more. Everything costs more. So that means they got to charge you more. There's a lot of uncertainty. So they don't want to just sell you something and then they might not have good inventory coming in. So they might not be able to make money. So they potentially charging you more. Okay, so somebody said they wanted to shout out, not my name, haha, Kaden. So thanks for being on the live. Thank you for the engagement. I do appreciate you being in the chat and staying with me on this live. I see a couple other people in the chat. Shout out to Adrian. I'm also named Adrian, so shout out. I see a Rob was in the chat. Hitman Houdini was in the chat. So shout out to all of you guys for being on here. Shout out again to Kaden. But yeah, like, I just wanted to come on and talk about the harm absorption that we take in, because I just feel like a lot of the times people aren't thinking about that. And because they haven't been thinking about that part, it kind of becomes distant, right? It's like, oh, well, I don't like what I'm hearing, but it's over there. No, it's over here. It's with us. It's hitting your pocketbook. Because I know it's hitting my pocketbook, right? You're looking at the gas prices like, what's going on? Let's fix that, right? So with that being said, I mean, there's so many other things I could say, but I try not to go on too long-winded of talks and go on too far of a tangent. But yeah, like, that was wild. I saw that on Reuters. There was like at least 4 articles on Reuters today relevant to that discussion. I was like, what do you mean? It's just so disappointing because in theory, there would at least have been like 3 months of them trying to work something out. I was like, y'all just signed the paperwork like 2 weeks ago. Like, what is happening? Thank you for the subscription. Thanks for signing on to the channel. I definitely appreciate that and look forward to, your continuous contact. And yeah, let me see. I see another comment in here. I bet if you did go to an amusement park, that they were charging extra money, because once again, everything costs so much. And then you got to think, In those kind of environments, they also charge you off of convenience as well. I won't necessarily call it like a luxury tax of any sort, but like they definitely charge you for the convenience. So you know the money, the prices. You know it costs more. And that's unfortunate because when you have times like how they are now, of course, you're more inclined to be like, I need to de-stress. I've been working really hard, doing whatever it is that I do. I want to be able to de-stress. I want to do something I enjoy, like an amusement park, like maybe family time, like just museums, any kind of sociable thing. It costs more. It costs to travel to these places. It costs to prepare for these places. It costs while you're at the place. Get back. It's just everything exponentially went up. Everything. Even like your simple like pantry items, they just cost more. And I don't think people think about the part what import export. Especially if a lot of what we have coming in is sitting in the Strait of Hormuz. Not saying that it is, but we know there are some things that are sitting there. And if it's for the United States, they're going to hold it because they like, well, y'all didn't hold up y'all end. We don't have to hold up our end. And with everything that's been going on, that has been proven to be an effective strategy for them. It is causing conversations to veer in certain directions. So, of course, they're going to continue to do that. Could you blame somebody if they see that strategy is going to work and you're not giving them much wiggle room? It's very concerning because I literally, like I said today, I just read something about strikes going out today. I was like, come on. If you were in a process of negotiations and you strike them multiple times during the process of negotiations, mind you, this I'm talking about since the MOU came in. I'm not talking about this whole time because technically it's been a lot of discussion that's been happening and strikes have been happening. Yes, I do. It's just not really operating in good faith. It's just not a good sign when it comes to the idea of deals, negotiations, all that good jazz. It really is. It's a really unique situation too, because some of the terms for which they're going to be discussing would involve a whole nother nation, which is a sovereign nation. So like they're not at the conversation. They're not at the table for this negotiation, right? So they really don't have to uphold said thing. And then it's like the people who are at the table aren't really upholding what they say they're going to do. So how comfortable do you feel going into those negotiations? It's really, interesting. So I'm going to go back to the comments and see what we have here. So do I do my own hair? I do. At this point, in the beginning, I did have someone originally put my starter, like at the beginning of starting my locks, I had someone start that. And then as part of my own self-care journey, I just continue to do those myself. I am a human being. Thanks for asking. I am a human being. You are not being catfished on this channel. I am a human being. And I put up content as often as I feel like I'm able to put it up and it's relevant to put up. So, yes, I am human. I'm glad that you vibing with what I'm talking about. That means the algorithm sent me to the right person at the right time. I'm happy I got the people in here that want to be in here and you guys is vibing with me. But yeah, like this is disappointing. You know what I mean? Like it's super disappointing. I was disappointed because we had so many opportunities to handle stuff differently. Even with the way some of the stuff went down with the World Cup, we had an opportunity, I feel like, to smooth some things maybe a little bit differently because that's a whole like global diplomacy type of thing anyway, right? They use that to kind of just make social situations a little bit more smooth, right? I think you can see a lot about geopolitics if you watch it. Just like, it's really interesting. So I was like watching it from that lens and it was really funny. And I'm going to like watch it again just to kind of put things in context. But we just had so many opportunities for things to be handled better. And I really wish we would have like moved on that as opposed to like the posture that we took, because it's going to be hard to navigate out of this posture. It's not been good, right? A lot of stuff that's happened while we've been in this current conflict has just not been good. So, yeah. And shout out to Caden's friend that asked for a shout out. With shout out that both of y'all were on here. Appreciate that. But you know, like, it was just so much that was happening during this particular conflict, and it's gonna be really hard from a mediation perspective. It's gonna be so hard to get people comfortable with the idea of walking back to the table after so much has happened, right? Because this is not the first time they've been in negotiations. It's not the second time they've been in negotiations. This is multiple iterations of them going into these negotiations, and this was the one where they're like, hey, we're gonna have an MOU, right? We're agreeing to the fact that we will have a discussion. We're putting in writing that we will have a discussion, and we are going to operate in good faith and try to come up with a deal or agreement that's agreeable to everyone. And we heard from the initial point of the MOU where it was like, hey, essentially, if we can just go back to baseline, in my opinion, is how I kind of looked at it, right? Those first initial things that they agreed upon, it was like, hey, don't strike. Hey, make sure there's movement through the Strait of Hormuz. Well, those were byproducts of the conflict anyway. So it's like, okay, show a good faith. Let's see what happens with that. We like 2 weeks into that and already conflict with that. So the actual higher ticket items or these other issues that are a little bit more contentious it's not as comfortable to discuss because, right, the most basic of things that should have been agreeable, that should have been easy to provide, deliver, show, prove, tell. You know, like a show and tell, right? You ain't do it. So if that's the case, why would someone be comfortable giving more? Because y'all keep in mind, a lot of times when you go in these negotiations, you give a little, you take a little, you give a little, you take a little. Why would I be comfortable giving up anything when I see you don't appreciate? You're not valuing, you don't respect what I'm bringing to the table. Why would they give any more? Right? Why? So then that means you're walking into negotiations where people don't feel comfortable. You're not going to have much movement. So let me see what's here. Oh, thank you. You all are very kind in this chat. Thank you so much. Yeah. But you get what I'm saying? It's like a show and tell situation. If I'm going into a situation where I already don't feel comfortable with you, me and you kind of got beef, we got a situation going on. You was being disrespectful for a few months or so, right? We was going back and forth. I'm saying, listen, this is bigger than maybe how I feel about the situation. We got to handle this professionally, diplomatically. We have to do X, Y, and Z. There are certain rules that govern certain pieces, and we're going to try to move in alignment with that, right? And then some other stuff happened. You're like, you know what? I'm going to let that rock. I'm going to let that slide. We're going to try to come back to these conversations. And then it goes left again. How many times are you willing to go back and forth before you say you don't want to do it at all? Where does that leave the economy? Where does that leave us as people? Like, you think about your relationships, your friendships, whether it's your very personable, like, you know, let's say whether it's your sociable, your friends, or your family, romantic relationship. How many times would you be willing to go back and forth with somebody and go to the table and have discussions and you don't feel like they're operating good faith? They're not trying. They're not putting forth the effort. How many times would you really be willing to go back and forth before you're like, nope, I'm over it and I'll take the consequences that come with it? Right? We as constituents don't want them to take the consequences that come with it because we have to eat those, not them. So thank you so much for being on here. I see that some people gotta leave. Thank you so much for being on the live with me. But you know, and hopefully you pop back to the next one because I've enjoyed you here. But you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like how many times would somebody be willing to go to the table before they just say they're not willing to do it? Where does that leave us? That's my question. Where does it leave us? So that was my question for today. Y'all know I either come with some questions for y'all, just some general questions that sit out there, questions for me. Where does that leave us? Where does it leave us? Because we can't be having a situation where they constantly trying to put alcohol in our gasoline. They cutting the gasoline, and listen, y'all know I got a problem with that. I might have to just show y'all the article because y'all know I got a problem with that. I know you lying. The quality of food don't even feel the same. A lot of people just it's too much. While y'all are in conflict, the consumers are absorbing the harm. So my question is, what happens? What happens next? I'm going to stay tuned. I'm going to talk to y'all about it. I can bring the facts next time. I know I let it come with them receipts. But today I just wanted to kick it with y'all. I just wanted to talk and see what y'all was thinking. See how y'all was processing all of this. Because, it's interesting. If nothing else, it's just interesting to think about. Like, even from a very human perspective, like, mindset. How many times would you be willing to go back and forth to the table for you? Like, I don't want to do that. I don't trust you to go back and forth. You gotta, when you're doing a mediation, you're doing negotiations, you gotta trust people. From what we've seen, don't let people trust people enough to have these conversations. They're not willing to trust them to give a little, which means not much is gonna happen in the positive, right? So we'll see. I'm gonna stay tuned. I'm gonna keep talking to y'all. I'm gonna keep bringing to y'all what I found. But like I told you, that was on Reuter's article. He talked about not like 9 hours ago. There's an article. He talked about not like 9 hours ago. There's an article about there being golden weapons, right, and that being a big priority, which in my opinion is just a strategy as to kind of put the push to kind of continue the conflict. But it's like one message of posting is saying like, hey, I don't kind of want to have to deal with this war. I want the war behind me. Oh, if we make a deal, I don't think it would stick. And another piece is like, well, they got weapons over there, and I feel like that's a big priority. We want to deal with that. Like I said, strategically, it just doesn't feel like there was a lot of thought put into things. It just seemed like very reactive. And that's not going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it. It's too reactive. We need you to be proactive. We need you to be strategic. There was not a lot of strategy going into this. I think they even acknowledged, personnel acknowledged like they were given bad intel and walked into something, right? Okay, well, now you got to kind of stand on it. You're in a situation. How are we going to navigate out of it? We're just not in a good place for navigating out of it. So we'll see what happens. Y'all know I'm going to be staying tuned. I'm going to, be in communication with y'all. I'm going to bring it back to my people. We going to chit chat. We going to talk. Y'all know when I see stuff, I like to come on and talk to y'all. And when I have time, I put stuff together where y'all can see things too. Because I'm always into sharing the receipts. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, go on Reuters. You can go buy. I feel like if you go on your computer, it give you more access. If you do it on the phone, sometimes it'll block you out and try to make you do a subscription. But you can get a couple of views before it forces like the subscription. I think you get X amount of views per day. So maybe try a computer if you want to kind of read all 4 of the ones I'm referencing. If you just want to skim it, then you can just probably check it out on your phone. I implore you to do that. I'm always one for sharing resources. You can also check the official website. White House government page has quite a few interesting pieces of information in the executive action section, right? So you can kind of cross-reference, right? I like to reconcile like certain things that I can find as far as actions that are being taken place. So you can look those items up there too. There are lots of places that you can get news from. But my hope is that you're just getting the information. You're figuring out what you want to do with that information so that you can be okay. Because at the end of the day, we as the consumers have to be okay. And we have to figure out, what's going on around us and strategizing as to what we can do with what decisions we actually can make, right? That's what I talked a lot about, or briefly about the elections and different things. If you have a vote, you have an ability to engage, do your best to engage, right? At whatever level that you can, at your comfort level with, your ideologies, your views, your understanding, your knowledge and mind, but also empower yourself to know more so that you can make the best possible decisions that you can make. Because when we elect people, we put them in these positions to be able to be in the rooms that we can't be in and reflect our views, our needs, and to make the correct decisions. So let's just make sure we keep the right people, or better, get the right people, get and or keep, however you would like to perceive that, the right people in these positions, so that we can be okay. Because right now, what I observed is absolutely not okay. And we need people who, can handle these things the correct way. So once again, this is Adrian. I'm legally everywhere, child. Well, we legally everywhere, looking into everything. I'm gonna look and see if there's any more comments here. I see the compliments. I see the comments. I just appreciate all the engagement on the live. I told y'all I'll try to do some more lives more frequently where I'm just chatting with y'all because, I know y'all my people. But yeah, it's just a conversation of where do we go from here if this is the kind of dialogue. Like, how realistically, like, just think about it from a relationship perspective. How much is too much? At what point would you not be willing to go to the table and continue conversations? It's the same with them, even if we're not in those political rooms. We know what it's like to have to be in the table with somebody we feel like they're not really trying. We know what it's like, when someone is trying, right? You like those different kind of emotions and those different kind of experiences. It would be the same in there. They just might have governing documents and things that outline maybe certain levels of engagement and how they can go about it, right? Politics, if you will. But at the core, human experience. So the question is, where do we go from here? Legally everywhere, we're child. We legally everywhere, looking into everything. I wish you all a wonderful evening. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourself. Engage in self-care, because it's a lot. When you're reading a lot of these different articles, these different things, it's a lot. So engage in self-care. Take care of yourself. Be safe out there. And I will see you. I'll see you